again, great education for me on both aspects, so I hope it's coming across the same way. My last guest, of course, you knew that there was no way that I could have a segment and anything with the word celebration and not have some wine to celebrate. So I was very interested to know that Bottles carries kosher wine, and several people told me this, and I've been to Bottles several times, so I was very interested to do it. So I'm excited and appreciative to Katie from Bottles arranging to have Eric come in to join me. So Eric, if you're around the corner there, we'll bring you in next. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Good to see you. Thank you for coming
Of
in. I really
course.
appreciate it. And
Nice to see
again,
you.
I'll give Katie a shout out and thank her as well.
Yeah.
So my experience with you is that it's a beautiful wine shop.
Thank you.
It's an absolutely beautiful wine shop.
Thank you.
And even though the term that I use now is calling myself the wine enthusiast, is that even though I seem to know a lot about wine, I like the fact that when I can go into a place and ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And your team over there is absolutely fantastic at being able to let me do that.
Mhm.
I had a great experience of working with you guys for Savor the Story
That's right.
with the Providence Public Library. Sat on the host committee for that event, and it was a great event, and it was Robert Sinsky? Am I messing up?
Last year's Robert Sinsky.
Robert Sinsky.
Rob and his wife Maria came in from Napa and showed their wines and presented their wines and talked about their wines.
And they were phenomenal
They
wines.
were phenomenal wines.
Yeah.
They do a beautiful, beautiful job. It was a pleasure.
And I have to say, Bottles was very patient with me because I placed my order after the dinner, and it was like literally 6 weeks before I got over to pick it up. But I was very happy when I did, and I've since gone through everything that I ordered from
Good,
them.
good.
So
I'm glad to hear
thank you very
it.
much. So show us what you got here today.
Awesome.
And then I want to have you give me an overview on Bottles before we get to the tasting of stuff.
Sure.
Okay.
Wines first?
Well, yeah, pull them out. We'll
All
talk
right.
about what we got.
All right.
I still want to make sure that I highlight a little bit more of the Bottles. So.
Sure. So I don't think we're going to drink this, but I
Okay.
wanted to bring a bottle of Manischewitz because I think this is the kosher wine that most people know. And there's so much more. This is just the very beginning.
But this is like one of the most popular, is what you're saying.
It's one of the most popular, and I think that it's used mostly for a ceremony or some sort of in sacramental capacity more
Okay.
than consuming. But I also brought a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand.
Okay.
I brought a Prosecco from Italy.
Really?
Yes, Prosecco. We'll talk more about that. I brought an Israeli Pinot Noir
Nice.
and a Bordelais blend, a Cabernet Merlot blend from South Africa. So a big range of different styles of wine and different producers from all over the world,
So,
which is exciting.
how many kosher wines overall does Bottles have?
We probably have different wines, probably 40 to 50 different types of wines from sparkling. We have lots of rosés, whites and reds, of course, ranging from things that are on the sweet side like Moscato and semi-dry wines to Chardonnays and Sauvignon Blancs and Pinot Grigios. And then for red wines, anything from Cabernet or Malbec, all the way up to things like Barolo and Beaujolais and
A Barolo that's kosher.
a Barolo that's kosher. Lots of Bordeaux's actually are kosher too.
See, now, so this is,
yeah.
again, great education, because this is, not, I would have expected you to just say 10 or 12.
No,
You-
no. Lots and lots. We have a lot of access to some really great wines that happen to be kosher. And I think that's a big point to make, is that these wines are no different than any other wines on our shelf in terms of quality. They are made by wonderful winemakers who are making great wines from awesome grapes. But they are kosher because a rabbi has come in and made sure that everything was done in accordance to rabbinic law, and it gets the hechsher, and they become kosher.
So when you're searching, and it doesn't sound like you've had to do a lot of searching, it sounds like you kind of, in some cases, you've found a wine and then all of a sudden find out it's kosher. Has that happened to you?
That happens,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's no difference really between any of these wines and their non-kosher counterparts. There are a few things that that do make them different. One of the things that I talked about was the rabbinical supervision. Grapes and wine production is inherently kosher. because there is, like Rabbi Barry talked about, there isn't anything about milk or meat
Meat,
and
right.
those things being in winemaking facilities. Basically, what the the supervising rabbi that will certify these wines as being kosher, is making sure that those things do not exist in a winery, and they never do. Also, that the wine isn't being dedicated to another god in any sort of way, and that this wine is completely agnostic in every way at any point. I think the way Rabbi Barry explains it to me is that a long time ago, wines would be dedicated to Jesus or a Christian god or another god. So that does not happen in any way with any wine that is ever certified kosher.
So in your time, and I actually want to make sure I cover this too, so in your time and your experience in working in this industry, have you kind of seen a growth in more kosher wines?
Absolutely, absolutely. So since Bottles has been open, almost 8 years. Wow, 8 years. We had some kosher wine, and that the depth and breadth of selection on kosher wine has grown enormously. And to have a kosher wine from New Zealand and South Africa and California, of course, Chile, France, they're all over the place.
So and kind of tell us a little bit about your background, because I don't want to skip over that, because obviously my guests know that I'm a huge wine enthusiast. We incorporate wines in everywhere we can. And we've had sommeliers on, we've had experts on, we've had great people that have had the background. So tell us a little bit about how you've gotten so involved in this.
So wine has always been a passion for me. I did what a lot of people did in college and waited tables to kind of get myself through. Worked at a really nice place who had a wine program, and really understood that wine makes food better, and then took that learnings and went to Chicago. Worked at a really nice Italian restaurant that had a grand Wine Spectator Grand Award-winning list, and that's where I really started to learn about wines, Italian wines in particular. And then I moved out to Seattle and worked at a giant Asian restaurant in downtown Seattle. That's where I really was able to put everything together, because Washington is a wine growing region. So, not only did we have an extraordinary depth and breadth of selection at the restaurant, but I was able to go to the vineyards, go to the wineries, and to be able to see how wine was actually made. And that's where it all really started to come together for me, and understanding that the things that happen in the vineyard have a significant effect on what happens in the bottle, and then all of the steps in between.
So Eric's background is a lot like mine. He's played with food and wine for a very long time.
Yeah, very long time. Restaurants for longer than I care to admit.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
And then retail from starting in 2010, and now back in the restaurant game again.
But you've seen an absolute evolution, and like you said, you have a passion for it to understand where it comes from. And
Yeah.
I think even Bottle's mission that I kind of understand about sustainable, and that you guys have got a lot that what you look for. It's very particular.
It is
what
very
you look for,
particular.
so,
I
yeah.
mean, we vet all of the wines that come into our store, including our kosher wines, and to make sure that the number one criteria or criterion for the wine is it good? Is it well made? The style might not be for us,
Right.
it might not be the thing that you would take home or that I would take home, but one can recognize that it's well-made wine, and that there are people that would really like that wine. So we vet everything that comes in, and again, including the kosher wines.
So I'm going to do one it's very small, but a very cool segue. So the other day I get, in my house, I subscribe to Wine Spectator, and you just mentioned the award list. So the top 100 wines came out.
Right.
Which is always surprising, and I do follow them on social media, because I'm always wishing I was one of those people in the room when they're tasting these things and judging them. But I got to imagine there's a lot of wines on that list that are in your store.
There are a lot of wines on that list that are on our store, and it's kind of a crapshoot, when we're buying wines,
you don't
gearing
know.
up. Yeah, you don't know. So when we're buying wines for the holiday season, and the Wine Spectator always releases their top 100 wines, I think right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
What we have in inventory is always set. So it's kind of it's like an Easter egg hunt, kind of, in that, like, oh, that's one, oh, that one, so. We have several top 100 wines in the store, and
So the only thing I got to say, and I know that I'll be over at Bottles looking for some of them, is that I have to say one thing different on the list I noticed this year is that there was a lot more wines that were, call it affordable. So
Yeah.
that were on the list this year. So it wasn't
Sure.
all wines that are in, the 90s or the $100 range. I mean,
Right.
I saw Kendall Jackson Chardonnay as one of the ones in there. So,
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
and I mean, and that's a $17-20 bottle of wine.
It is, and I think that everybody in the wine industry is understanding that no matter what your disposable income is and how much how much you could spend on a bottle of wine, that most people want a bottle of wine that they consider to be affordable. That amount is different for different people, but the wines that we sell at the store, the most of them are in the sub $15 range, and I think that that's something that we really excel at Bottles, is that we find those wines that are great wines that drink better than they cost, meaning the quality in the bottle is way better than what you're paying for them, and that's really a fun part of our job, and it's a difficult part of our job too, because you have to taste a lot of frogs in order to get to Prince. Yeah.
There you go. I like that analogy. So I think I'm going to make it my mission that I have to try all 100 of those wines. So I might be soliciting Eric's help a lot more after today. So you might see us again in the next few weeks after the holiday together again. All right. So let's get into celebrating Hanukkah and the preparations.
Yeah.
Here. So what do we have to try?
All right. Well, like any time you are having a get together, whether it's Hanukkah or Passover Seder or Christmas or any sort of celebratory time and dinner, Bubbles is always a wonderful, wonderful way to start. And listening to Rabbi Barry talk about holiday and Hanukkah foods, and that olive oil is a very important part of the Hanukkah culinary tradition, and that fried foods are a very important part. Bubbles, Prosecco in particular, can be a wonderful, wonderful pairing for fried foods.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that from the fried food concern.
Yeah.
So, education-wise, so we're obviously doing this little bit of education that we're going to do here, and I'm going to let him describe everything a little bit more.
Mhm.
But in the store, so
Yeah.
when someone's coming in, and we've got till next week, the 12th, that's going on, and you've got the 8
Mhm,
days.
mhm.
Yourself, other members in the store are pretty cognizant, pretty familiar with most of the wines to be able to talk what's kosher and
Mhm.
refer to even pairings like we're talking about now.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that sets Bottles apart from most stores is that our staff is trained, and that we hold weekly trainings on products and we've fallen into this groovy little thing where I have the staff members teaching the other staff members about what it is that they feel like other people should know. So, we pick on a region or we pick on a particular grape varietal, and a staff member learns everything that there is to know about it, presents their information to the rest of the staff. We taste 3 or 4 examples of the wine or the region that we're talking about, and that way everybody can talk about that product a little bit better. We certainly do the same thing, with kosher wines, and so that we can familiarize ourselves with them, talk about the differences between them. But it's really hard to just talk about kosher wines again, because these wines, I don't want to, separate out from all the other wines that we sell in the store, just because they happen to be kosher.
Right,
So, but what we do talk about, cheers to you. We do talk about what makes wine kosher, how it's consumed, when it's consumed, why it's consumed.
So it's just a different style of wine being kosher,
Yeah,
but no different from any other education you do with any wine in the store.
precisely. And we have a large kosher selection at the store, where all of the wines within a particular area in the store are kosher. It expands, it doubles during Passover in the spring. And then so that we can have more bottles on the shelves and a greater variety. And then we reconfigure the shelves for the rest of the year.
So I'm a Prosecco fan. As a lot of people know, I drink it all year long. Love it. I mix it with cocktails. This is incredibly light, and I've never had this Prosecco.
No, it's incredibly light. It's a little bit fruity.
Yeah.
I think it would have broad appeal for anybody, whether they're a wine connoisseur or guru or
And I can
or,
see where
or
this
a
would go with
novice.
potato pancakes. Now that I'm thinking about
And
the
with potato
latke.
pancakes, yeah.
I can see that.
It's got a nice fruitiness about it. One nice thing about this particular Prosecco is that it's a little bit lower in alcohol. It's at about 11% alcohol. So, you can have a little bit more of it, or you can start with a glass of it or a half glass of it, and and you're
Progress
not
to something else,
you're,
too.
you're progressing on to something else, and that you're not over consuming in any way. But nothing sets the tone of an evening or a celebration like popping open a bottle of bubbles and
Absolutely.
and rolling things out that way.
So I promise I'm going to get a picture of all this when the segment's over, and I will make sure it's posted on social media to let everybody specifically see these again and again. What does something like this go for in the store?
This particular prosecco is $17.99.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
fantastic.
great value. It's a great value.
And it's going to help me progress to the next one, so that's
Mhm.
perfect. All right.
So-
what do we have next?
The next wine, let's get rid of Manischewitz here.
Okay.
Put him down below. The next wine is another great wine that just happens to be kosher. O'Dwyer's Creek, 2016 Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough, New Zealand. So it's awesome to find, a very, very well made, very great example of a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand that tastes like wine, Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand that
Yeah.
happens to be kosher.
I got the aroma the second you poured it.
Yeah. So it has that quintessential New Zealand
Yeah.
style grapefruit. I think New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs are always about grapefruit, whether it's pink grapefruit or white grapefruit or
Yes.
whatnot. Also a little bit of other citrus around it. There's a little bit of lemon in there. Another thing that I really like about this wine is that it has a grassiness, kind of a vegetal
Yeah, I got the
grassiness
grass
to it.
into yeah. Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, light, not
Yeah.
overpowering.
Yeah.
That some Sauvignon Blancs is the sticky sweet that stick on you. This
Yeah.
is not there at all.
Mm-mm, no, and great acidity. That mouth cleansing acidity that just kind of washes everything in a way. Again, another great wine that would go with fried foods. This and or anything that you would squeeze a lemon on. This would be good too.
So, in thinking that this is talking about Hanukkah and kosher wines, and this being a Sauvignon Blanc, again, the perception of Sauvignon Blancs is the summer wine.
Yes.
That's not your perception in the store, right?
That's not my perception at the store. No.
Because
No.
this is again, I drink, I have no prejudice against any wine, so I drink any wine any time of the year. But this, like you just said, I could find even at Christmas time, I could find perfect things that I would be drinking.
Absolutely.
So-
And I think something like this makes great cocktail wine. So if you're having an open house or, just having people over and you've got, a table full of just snacks or no food at all, this wine does just fine by itself.
So now we've gone from Italy to New Zealand. What does something like this one cost in the store?
This is also $17.99.
Perfect.
Also
wine price
$17.99.
then, That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Italy, New Zealand, what are we doing next?
All right, let's go to Israel.
That I'd like to do.
Sure. I'm just going to use the same
Mhm.
glass if it's all the same to you.
Mhm.
So a lot of our kosher wine comes from all over the world. A lot of it comes from Israel. Barkan is maybe one of the best known Israeli wines, or maybe they have the largest distribution of wines into the United States. They make several different varieties in what's referred to as international varieties, so things that we all recognize. They have a Chardonnay, they have a Cabernet, they have Merlot, they have, I believe there's a Rosé, but they also make a really nice light Pinot Noir.
Now, all the grapes are sourced originally from Israel? They're not?
Everything comes from Israel.
Wow.
Absolutely. Israel and that entire region, they've been growing grapes for wine production for,
Much longer than most people realize, right?
quite literally thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect climate for it.
Oh my God,
they-
beautiful. Nice.
Yeah, the international varieties seem to do very well in Israel and surrounding countries. I think also people understand the marketability and the economics behind having wines and grapes that people recognize and like and adhere to. But as an added bonus, they grow well there. It's a great climate for it. The thing that I love about this Pinot Noir
Unbelievable.
is that it actually tastes like Pinot Noir,
Mhm.
which is great. It's light. It has a nose of raspberries and other tart fruits. A little bit of a cola element to it that I love. And then
it's
It-
incredibly enjoyable. I gotta be
Yeah.
honest with you, this is another thing, talking about easy drinking, is that there's some Pinot Noirs, again, they stick on the back of you when you're about to go
Yeah.
down with them. This is incredibly smooth,
Yeah.
incredibly easy drinking for a
Yeah.
Pinot Noir. And you're right, it does taste like a Pinot Noir.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of a meatiness about it that I really enjoy. It's a little smoky, and that little bit of
Just gonna say
smokiness
smoky.
is something that is not in every Pinot Noir, but it's something that I have found to be a common thread in the terroir of this region of Israel. That the wines can be a little dusty, they can be a little smoky, in a good way. And I think that it adds complexity and intrigue and makes them a little bit unique, and and it showcases the difference between Pinot Noir from this part of the world versus Pinot Noir from anywhere
I think
else.
this is something we're gonna have to look into more about, covering some more Israeli wines, because this is incredibly enjoyable. That smoky texture, that weight that's on there,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, and
I'm not wasting the last sip of that, but we're
No,
gonna go to the
no,
next one before we
yeah.
get out. So, we got one more to try, right?
Mhm.
Which has got this phenomenal packaging over
Yeah.
that I'm loving.
So this is a cool addition to our kosher wine selection. This just came in, and I love the beautiful label and unorthodox,
Yeah.
a little cheeky, right? But really, really great wine from South Africa. South Africa is best known for a grape called Pinotage, a red grape called Pinotage.
Yep.
They make white wine, a lot of white wine, best known for Chenin Blanc, but they also make international varietals like Cabernet and Merlot, which this wine is. This is a classic Bordeaux style blend of mostly Merlot, 62% Merlot, and what's the math, 38% Cabernet.
Nice.
Yeah. So
we've literally gone all over. We've got South Africa, Italy, Israel. I mean, this is like,
Yeah.
this.
it's amazing. It's wonderful, and I love to see it. I love to see the depth and breadth of selection, style, prices, and I know that our Jewish community and people that drink kosher wine, either exclusively or during holiday times, really appreciate our selection because
Oh my
they're.
God, that is amazing.
Isn't that good?
It's really amazing.
Isn't that good? Yeah.
As I said, there's nothing wrong with that. So as we close out, and this price point is pretty much similar to the rest.
$14.99
For that,
for that.
I'll be going by bottles for some of this.
It's really good.
This is something I want to have. So as we're getting ready to close out, again, the regions that you just saw it's from, Eric's explanation, these are things that can absolutely, over the 8 days, help you out with your Hanukkah celebrations, help you out with any of your kosher celebrations coming up. And truthfully, anybody should be trying these wines because they were all beautiful wines. So we got some great education today. I want to thank the rabbi for coming in. I want to take Rob for coming in, talking about his 3 great restaurants and the news that he gave us. And I certainly want to take Eric for coming in too from Bottles, because this was a phenomenal education. So thank you for joining me today on The Taste. Stay tuned to what we're going to be doing next week. I'm getting some popular demands, so we may be changing up next week's segment a little bit to possibly cover La Vigilia. We'll throw that out there like that. But thank you for tuning in. I'm Rick Simone. Thank you for tuning in. I'm